Hi, this is Don Carter. In this video, I'd like to show you how the drama triangle and the empowerment dynamic integrate with one another, as well as with my life scripts and parts matrix model. The drama triangle by Steve Karpman is also known as the victim trap or the victim triangle. This is because it is a victim mentality or mindset. The empowerment dynamic by David Emerald is an alternative to the drama triangle. It is a creator mentality. Both of these mindsets fit perfectly into the life scripts and parts matrix model. We'll talk more about that later on in the presentation. Let's begin with a look at the drama triangle. Before going much further, though, I need to qualify a few things. You'll see that there are three roles on this triangle. There's a victim, a persecutor, and a rescuer. It's important to note right up front that there is such a thing as a genuine victim, a genuine persecutor, and a genuine rescuer. A genuine victim might be a child being neglected or abused. The persecutor would be the abuser, and the rescuer would be the social services or law enforcement personnel called in to the rescue. A persecutor can be a person, a medical condition, a financial shortcoming, anything that causes what might be considered a problem for the victim. A rescuer is anyone who comes in to rescue the victim from the persecutor. As mentioned in my presentation on enabling behavior, sometimes it's normal to reach out to help someone we love when they're down or in trouble. Other times it's like throwing a match on a pool of gasoline. Watch my video on enabling behavior in order to understand when helping is actually hurting. In a dysfunctional or less than nurturing family, one may start out in a genuine victim role because children are unable to protect themselves. For example, 12-year-old Johnny's father has had a very bad day at work. His boss has been riding him all day long to get a report done, and he makes one mistake after the other. When he finally gets home, he finds Johnny's bike laying in the driveway. He has to get out and put the bike away so he can pull the car up into the garage. He also notices Johnny did not take out the garbage, which is his new chore. So when he comes into the house, he jumps all over Johnny for leaving his bike in the drive and for not taking out the garbage. Mom hears the commotion, knows that Dad has had a bad day, and jumps all over him for taking it out on Johnny. Dad lashes back at Mom, saying he's just trying to teach the boy good work ethic. They get into a big fight. Then Johnny jumps all over Mom for jumping all over Dad, who jumped all over him. This is why they call it the drama triangle. Johnny started out in the victim role, Dad in the persecutor role, and Mom in the rescuer role. When Mom yelled at Dad for jumping on Johnny, she became Dad's persecutor. Dad became the victim, and Johnny rescued Dad from Mom. Over time, as the child grows, that victim mentality becomes a habit of thought known as a mindset. It becomes an habitual way of seeing ourselves, other people, and the world in general. Eventually, Johnny grows up into a young adult who is old enough to protect himself. And whenever he gets triggered into an emotionally reactive state, that victim mentality takes over, and he acts out the drama triangle. The victim mentality is a problem-focused survival skill that only makes things worse. All it takes to be a victim is a perceived persecutor. That persecutor, again, can be anything such as a person, like your boss or spouse, a medical condition, a consequence such as a DUI, or anything else that can trigger emotional reactivity, such as fear of abandonment, toxic shame, or contempt for self or others. Now, before we take a look at the alternative to the drama triangle, let's take a look at the history behind it. The drama triangle can be traced all the way back to that proverbial Garden of Eden. When the serpent came into the garden, he pretended to be a rescuer, put Eve in the role of victim, and presented God to her in the role of persecutor. He said, "Surely you will not die if you eat that apple. He just doesn't want you to be like him." By doing so, the serpent was actually inviting Eve into a game of drama triangle. Pretending to be a rescuer, he was actually the persecutor and Eve was his victim. At this point, it became an invitation for God to come to the rescue of Eve. However, he chose not to do that. He could have come in, erased the whole experience, and started over from scratch, rescuing Adam and Eve from the temptation of the serpent. But if he had done so, he would have been playing by the rules of the serpent's model, the drama triangle. But God has his own model. We can see it in the empowerment dynamic, which I like to call the creator mentality. The empowerment dynamic, TED for short, is the opportunity-focused, growth-oriented model. As I mentioned earlier, God could have come in to the rescue and reset history right there and then, but he chose not to. Instead, he went to his own model, to his own goal for us. This diagram demonstrates the difference between the drama triangle and his model. First of all, notice in this mindset, the triangle is flipped upside right. At the top of the triangle, in the up position, is the creator role. The creator is opposite of the victim role. As the story goes, God created us in his image, which implies that his goal for us is to be a creator as he is a creator. Now, he's a creator on a much more massive scale, and he has supernatural power. But we have the power to create or affect the circumstances in our lives by the decisions we make and the behaviors we choose. For example, in our story, Eve created the predicament she found herself in by the choices she made. In God's model or mindset, Eve is accountable to create the solution to her predicament by making new choices. If she does not have the expertise or know-how to create a solution, it's up to her to seek out a coach to help her develop the know-how and expertise to make those changes that she wants. Also notice in the creator mentality there are no rescuers, only coaches. The difference between a rescuer and a coach is best described by a sports analogy. Regardless of whether you play football, basketball, tennis, or golf, when you feel stuck and you're not sure what to do, you call a timeout and consult with your coach. If your coach is actually a rescuer, he or she will put you on the bench and go in and try to play the game for you. But if your coach is really a coach, the two of you will brainstorm for a solution, and when you agree on a strategy, you will go back into the game and apply that strategy, thereby affecting the change you want. Also in the creator mentality, there are no persecutors, only challenges, also known as opportunities for growth. This is a major distinction between the two models. In the victim mindset, seeing obstacles as persecutors gives us a problem focus. It's experienced as a threat, which triggers survival mode. In the creator mentality, seeing obstacles as challenges gives us an opportunity focus, experienced as motivation, which triggers growth mode. Survival mode is a highly reactive state. Growth mode requires a highly proactive state. When we are reactive, it seems as though our behaviors are choosing us. When we are proactive, we choose our behaviors. If you're already familiar with my life scripts and parts matrix model, by now you can see the linkage between the victim mentality, the creator mentality, and the life scripts and parts matrix model. For our purposes here, we will only briefly touch on the LSPM diagram. If you've not already done so, see the video on the life scripts and parts matrix model for more information. That 18-minute video describes the LSPM model and how it integrates with my iceberg model. In this presentation, we just want to notice a few things about how the LSPM fits with the victim and creator mentality. Notice here in the LSPM model, there are two boxes in the top tier. The first box is self-actualization, also known as growth mode. The second box is self-preservation, also known as survival mode. You'll notice that survival mode has a flowchart connected to it. Everything in that flowchart represents various forms of triggered emotional and behavioral reactivity. This is where our behaviors seem to choose us rather than us choosing our behaviors. All kinds of symptoms come from this reactivity, especially if you came from a less than nurturing family and carry a lot of emotional pain in the form of abandonment, shame, and contempt. Again, see the LSPM video to learn more about that. Also notice that there is no flowchart connected to the self-actualization growth mode box. This is because in growth mode we are proactive, meaning we are free from life scripts and wounded parts of self. In growth mode, we are in our most mature adult ego state. I like to call it the CEO of the self, because this is where we are in charge of all our executive functioning, problem solving, decision making, parenting, leadership skills, evaluation, negotiation, conflict resolution, and so on. From here, we choose our behaviors, they don't choose us. We can know that we are in growth mode when we are being proactive. Likewise, we can know that we are in survival mode when we are reactive. Here's where the linkage between those mentalities fit with the LSPM. It is only when we are in growth mode that we can adopt the creator mentality. When we are triggered into survival mode, we get triggered into the victim mentality. Now, obviously, anyone looking at the diagram would want to be in growth mode all the time. However, we have human nature to contend with. And depending on the extent of our woundedness from our family of origin, we may have mild, moderate, or severe emotional wounds to deal with as well. The emotional wound of abandonment, the emotional infection of shame, and the emotional scab of contempt triggers and activates all this emotional and behavioral reactivity. This is why we often miss the mark. Back when the Romans ruled the world, the most important element of their powerful armies were the archers. Their ability to hit their mark in the first wave of the battle protected their fellows and oftentimes overwhelmed the enemies, allowing the rest of the army to sweep in and win the day. In those biblical times, to sin was to miss the mark. The New Testament word for sin is the Greek word hamartia. It is an old military archery term meaning to miss the mark. Try as you might, practice as you will, you still miss that bullseye from time to time. Even the best marksman misses the mark once in a while. When Eve fell prey to the drama triangle, she and Adam missed the mark God has set for us. When we delve a little deeper into the story, we see that first sin is what brought shame into the world. The Life Scripts and Parts Matrix video, along with the iceberg model, makes it clear the central role shame plays in the emotional and behavioral reactivity inherent with unmet attachment needs and wounds left by physical, sexual, and emotional abuse. We live in a broken world where wounded people wound people. Furthermore, we have a human nature and a spiritual nature. Our human nature, also referred to as our flesh, carries those wounds of this world. Our spiritual nature connects us to our Creator, affording us an opportunity to apply some of His supernatural power to change our most difficult circumstances. In my opinion, this is why the 12-step programs work so well for most people. Because of our reactive human nature, we will frequently miss the mark, but we also have that spiritual nature. Adopting a creator mentality, enlisting the help of our higher power and other coaches, connecting to a coach such as a therapist, mentor, or sponsor helps us to connect to our true spiritual self. But it will not rid us of our reactive human nature. The best thing we can hope for is progress, not perfection. The golden key is the developing of a dual awareness of the growth-oriented proactive adult self and the child-created survival-oriented reactive parts of self. When I can keep my most mature adult self out front leading the way, even when I'm triggered into emotional and behavioral reactivity, I can use those adult resources to regulate and heal the emotional and attachment wounds of abandonment, shame, and contempt. So going forward from here, be patient with yourself. Implement a no-shame policy. Get to know your many different parts of self and focus on progress, not perfection. When you're not triggered, make some choices about getting a coach in some form, whether that's a therapist or a sponsor in a 12-step program. I hope this presentation has been helpful. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions.